everyone, it looks like the full release of Isle of Siptah DLC is around the corner for all platforms. Its full release was clearly delayed since it was planned to come out around the first quarter of this year and not the second one. We are already in the second quarter, but I suppose that the significant content changes between other adjustments made Isle of Siptah getting released at this later date. Before going deeper into this video, I'd like to hear your opinion in the comment section down below about the release date of this expansion. If you think it's arriving very late, in the right timing, or if it's even too early for the release. Just in case you are a player on the PC who never tried this DLC or are a console player, this video may be for you. The Isle of Siptah design is different from the Exile Lands map. Siptah was actually planned to be built more face to PvP than really to the PvE aspect of the game, while the base game map, Exile Lands, seems to be a little more balanced on that. You can always feel free to disagree with me on that if you wish. However, through your journey on the Isle, you will still experience several moments where PvE is still very significant, due to the amount of enemies, including bosses per area, or whatever you have to do, you need to pass through a bunch of threats. Or at least through some, I won't say through all the areas of the Isle, but at least some parts of the map, you will notice how much you have to worry about the PvE aspect around the place. I can tell you that my first experience with this new map, once I've created a new character, was actually a little more harsh in the beginning, with more challenges in comparison with my fresh starts in the Exile Lands. I died more times on the Isle of Siptah than I did on the Exile Lands. In the Exile Lands we start further away from threats, and that might give us more chances to start our journey safely in comparison with Siptah. Even though in Siptah you still have some space between the spawning area and a couple of threats, but the surrounding areas around that place seem to be more threatening. You have wild dogs and other enemies sometimes to worry about, since pretty much the early game stage. This is just one of the aspects that makes PvE still being a thing in this recent map. When it comes to PvP, you are likely to come across with other players more easily in this isle, and there should be a bigger competition between, for example, clans, at least, and a situation where you can be interrupted while summoning a surge. That can occasionally happen. This new land itself seems to be a place that you will need to be more aware of the surroundings more often, either due to the previously placed enemies, but also due to the other players who may spot your base more easily in certain places of the map, or even build nearby your base. Surely this can also happen in the Exile Lands pretty often, but it seems to be a little more challenging to stay away from other players here on the Isle of Siptah. This isle gives me the impression that we have slightly less space to build at or expand our base in comparison within the Exile Lands. Maybe due to the way Isle of Siptah was designed, in certain areas it seems to be a little more tight in space than over other areas, like for example the shore, or even in the open fields surrounding Siptah's tower, which is a huge space around the place, which can make you expanding your base even more, but it will become an easy target for enemies to spot easily, maybe. The contrast between biomes doesn't seem to be as significant in Siptah as it is in the Exile Lands map, where you have a very distinct collection of biomes, from the volcanic area to the snowy biome, highlands, the huge desert, or even the jungle or swamp. While in Siptah, you will notice the similarities between mostly biomes. The density of trees and vegetation, overall plenty of forests to pass through, is something that does exist in this map. But the biome diversity is more noticeable once you move down south to the more recently implemented areas, where you will find yourself in a desert-themed environment, and then you have some water around the place, but also something that is really different from any other biomes. There is the volcanic-inspired biome more to the western side, but still different from the volcano area from the Exile lands. Since both maps have a distinct design, it makes sense for the resources and mobs placement to be different between each maps as well. There are many camps through the Isle of Siptah, so it is not hard to find human NPCs to kill or enslave. The challenge to find the right spot to build at, if there is a camp blocking the building area, can be a frequent thing, but hopefully there are still enough areas for you to choose where to build at. It's not as limited as it sounds. And I apologize if the impression that I'm giving you about this map here is the fact that there is not much space to build at on Siptah. That is not true. There is still plenty places to build around, it just built differently, okay? You will understand if you try this map. Besides of the Purges, which are available for both Exile lands and the Isle of Siptah, this DLC brings you another chance of obtaining special trolls or certain kinds of loot like feats scrolls through a new feature, the Surges. After performing some steps, you can summon a surge through a ley shrine in order to have more chances of fighting or capturing specific human NPCs that you may not find anywhere else you've passed through. These may spawn mixed with other sorts of NPCs. The original target with this map lore was for you to land in a territory to survive at what would feel more like a wasteland. But after the developers decided to add all the camps to the Isle due to some partial feedback from the community, there was like a plot twist into the story, and the humans by the camps have repopulated the land, making it feeling more alive, let's say that way. There are clearly things in this DLC that you cannot experience in the base game map, and it's not only to the extent of surges or cosmetic things like in the other smaller DLCs that are more of item packs, that are pretty much visual assets that will enrich your game experience a little more for adding a bigger variety of things which are no more than alternatives to the base content, without giving really you any other advantage toward other players that don't own these packs, since they are more of an aesthetic addition to the game, maybe a couple of extra decorative items or reskins for the building pieces, armor, or even new weapons that are similar in stats to other base game weapons, for example. But in the case of the Isle of Siptah DLC, you will experience much more than just that, if I make myself understand. This DLC is more of a complex expansion and not just an asset pack instead. Some of the new things you will experience with it, besides of the surges and the appearance of a couple of new factions of enemies, are the storms and even the enemy summoning pools. While in the Exile lands there are the dungeons, in Siptah we can visit the vaults. The vaults are actually pretty much considered as dungeons too, but what makes the vaults different from the Exile lands dungeons, or similar in certain ways? Well, these vaults of Siptah are different when it comes to certain kinds of loot, enemy types and final rewards. And there are more vaults through the Isle than dungeons in the Exile lands. One of the similarities between some of the Exile lands dungeons and the Siptah vaults is really having to come across with challenging enemies, including bosses. It's possible to unlock new feats through vaults and dungeons. You may come across with little puzzles or obstacles on your way that will make your journey through both vaults and dungeons lasting a little longer. I actually enjoy both maps, but in different ways. Both of them have unique aspects and many things to add to my game experiences diary, but feeling or not feeling curious or excited to try this DLC map is always up to you. This means that you can live without this DLC and all the other paid packs released so far, but this will always be extra content that will turn your worthy experience even more substantial. I don't want in any form to influence you to buy or not this DLC, okay? That's always up to you. I'm just presenting you what Isle of Siptah is in general. But it's good when there are options to choose to go with in a game and ways of enriching your gameplay experiences. Thank you for watching this video. I hope this was useful in any way for you, and have a great day.